Oh my goodness, what is this?
We are recording.
Please choose the sponsor video. What?
We are recording right now, and we are beginning the class. We have been studying. This is a discourse, Hasidic discourse, that the Rebbe delivered in 1977.
Skip it.
A couple of weeks after, a couple of months after, a couple of months after the Rebbe suffered a massive heart attack, and he was talking about Hanukkah and the
Oh, you
connection,
know what? How funny.
and the connection of Hanukkah. Let me turn off this phone, if you don't mind.
Okay, we got you, Rabbi. Thank
Okay,
you.
get off the phone. All right. I said the and the Rebbe was talking about the connection of Hanukkah to Sukkot. Sukkot and Hanukkah, both of them possess 8 days. They are the only holidays that have 8 days to them. We have a 9th day outside of Israel for Sukkot, which we call Simchas Torah. But really the Torah says Shmini Atzeres, 8 days. Hanukkah also has 8 days. What is the connection between them? And the Rebbe goes into a deep discussion about the whole concept of Hanukkah. What happened on Hanukkah? Look at how we celebrate it. We celebrate Hanukkah by lighting the candles, or by lighting the flames of the menorah. So really, the miracle that is emphasized on Hanukkah is not the defeat of the Greeks on the battlefield, but rather the finding of the oil. What is oil? So in Hasidus and in Kabbalah, the oil, because it rises to the top, it has a nature of never integrating, of never mixing with other liquids. Therefore, it is considered a metaphor for the highest level. The highest level within a person is the level called wisdom, chokhmah in Hebrew. Wisdom is the deepest of all faculties within a person, and we don't even have access to wisdom on a steady basis. We can't define our wisdom. When we are presented with a dilemma or a problem, we are able to somehow think, oh, God, got it, the flash, yes! But then we take it and we expand it in different directions. As Rabbi Wolf was saying over this weekend, mentioned this yesterday. Understanding is a different world than wisdom. Once you understand something, you've taken the words of wisdom and you've built on them. Now you've understood them. Now you've expanded them. But the wisdom, the flash, comes and it goes. It doesn't remain. It doesn't integrate. It doesn't mix, like oil. So oil is a representative of the highest level. What is the highest level within a person's service to God? It is the mere fact that a person is completely devoted to godliness. And the Rebbe went and looked at the prayer that we recite all through Hanukkah in the davening, as well as in the benching. And over there, we say to God, you helped us defeat the Greeks who came lahashkicham toratecha, to make us forget your Torah. That we're saying this to God. Ulaha'avira mechuke retzonecha, and to remove us from the statutes of your will. Statutes of your will. What is a statute? A statute is a chok. A chok in the Torah means that God said, this is what I want you to do. This is retzonech. This is my will. And do it. There is no reason and there is no explanation. So God says, keep kosher. Yes, if you eat the cow the way it was slaughtered properly, and you buy it from the right places, a commercial.
Yeah, right.
You buy it from Gorilla's Pride, that's a fully glot kosher stock, then you can become holy. The Torah says you become holy that way. And if you eat a piece of meat that's bought in Kroger that does not carry a kosher section, then you can't become holy. Well, it's the same meat. It's the same animal. What are you talking about? How does that work? I'm not explaining it. It's a chok. Or you go into a funeral and you come in contact with a dead body. And then you want to go into the Beit HaMikdash. You want to walk into the temple. But you can't go in because you become defiled. So what do? They take ashes from a dead red heifer, a dead red cow. They sprinkle it on you after we mix it with some water, and now you're holy. Now you're pure. You've been purified. You do that twice in 1 week, you're fine. Oh, by the way, the Kohen that sprinkles the ashes on you, he becomes unclean because he come in contact with that stuff. But who became in contact with that stuff, you become cleansed. You become purified. You're able now to enter the temple. Huh? Yeah, I have no reason for that. I'm sorry. But then I want you also to keep Shabbos. I'd like you to put a mezuzah on your door. I wouldn't have thought maybe of these mitzvahs, but now that God has given them, they make sense to me. Put on tefillin. It's a sign. It's a bond. I get it. But so those are the mitzvahs that have reasons to them. Then those are called edut, testimonial type of mitzvahs. Then you have mishpatim, civil law. Don't murder, don't steal, don't cheat, be honest, have court systems. Any country worth anything would have all these laws on their books anyway. Yet God puts them in the Torah also. So we have three basic categories of commandments. The commandments of civil law that make absolute sense even if you wouldn't have a Torah. Commandments that make sense once the Torah gives them to us and explains them to us. And thirdly, commandments that have no reason, no logic is given to them. We could sit and explain, we can talk about it, go to a mikveh, it's purification. You become pure when you come out. We can explain it, we can talk about it, but the bottom line is the Torah doesn't. These are called chukim, or a chok, a statute. I want you to do it because this is my will. What is a will? Will means something that is beyond even chokhmah, beyond even wisdom. Will is something that doesn't have a place in the body. You can't say, I want to go back to Camp Ramah, but my finger doesn't really feel like it. If you want, everything wants. Your entire body wants. Your entire personality wants something. It's the same with pleasure. If you have pleasure, you can't say, oh, this vacation is the best vacation I've ever had. The food is great, the lodging is great, the weather was perfect. My left leg didn't enjoy it. What are you talking about? Pleasure is everywhere. It encompasses everything of the person. So it's higher. It's more personal. It's deeper even than wisdom or the highest levels. So when the prayer says that the Greeks tried to remove the Jewish people mechukei retzonecha, from the statutes, non-logical commandments of your will, of God's will, the deep will, desire of God who wants his people to do something, what we're saying is that they wanted to remove anything that was divine. The Greeks were happy with the Torah. They were satisfied with the culture. The falafel and the Israeli dancing was perfect. They enjoyed the kugel and the kishke and the gribenes and all the lakshan, all the good stuff that we have. That was perfect. That was wonderful. The food was good. They liked the traditions. They appreciated the quirks and idiosyncrasies that we have. But they couldn't stand this divinity. What are you throwing God in here for? Enjoy yourself. It's the might over spirit that was the Greek thing. The Olympics, it's the body, it's everything that is physical. Leave divinity out of it. That was their problem.
They had all kinds of gods.
They had the gods that they chose, not the God of gods, because the gods they chose they could control. A divinity means you're giving your control over to God. That's already something that was not tolerable for them. They couldn't handle that. The Greek culture couldn't handle that. That was the whole point. And if you see, Hanukkah doesn't celebrate the days are not celebrated the same way we celebrate anything else. Basically, there's no big meal like you have on Purim, for example, and we light candles. We light flames. That's the celebration. If you want, you can play a dreidel, you can have a latke, you can have a donut, you can dance, but there's no real. It's all spiritual. The whole concept of it is spiritual. It's a light. It's a candle. It's so interesting. It's beautiful. This is one of the more celebrated holidays and festivals by even people who have very little connection, but somehow it seems that their soul feels that this must be celebrated because it's just so. Holiday, it's a soul festival. There's not even food, traditional, there's finger food. I mean, we'll eat it any day, latkes. I mean, hello, but
wow.
but it's snacks. It's not a meal. It's not a sit down, indulge into the matzah and the wine and then the sukkah and the cheesecakes and blintzes on Shavuot. Yeah, it's just whatever you want. Good. Have some snack and fry it in oil and it's good. That was the issue with the Greeks. So Hanukkah celebrates the concept of God, of divinity over materialism. This is why they didn't, if they didn't like Judaism, they should have destroyed the temple. They didn't destroy the temple, they destroyed what? The oil. And they didn't even destroy it. They defiled it. They touched it to make it unclean. Their purpose wasn't to extinguish the flames of the menorah even. It was, why do you need holy oil? Why do you need purified oil? What's purified here? I'm going to touch it. See what happens. Is any lightning going to come and strike you? What are you doing? You're human beings. Be human. And the Maccabees came in and they said, we will not touch this oil because it has been touched by people who have not been in a state of purity, and we will wait for the purified oil. And they found one of these jars and it lasted for 8 days. That's the miracle. That's the miracle we celebrate. Then the Rebbe said that even those mitzvahs that are logical, like the testimonial commandments, put on tefillin, have a mezuzah, and even the ones that are civil laws, don't murder, don't steal, those laws that anybody would obviously want to keep, even those, they stem from the essence of God, the will of God. Will is, as we said before, within a human being, a will is a deep, personal feeling that we have. Something that I will is not necessarily something that you want. I don't like beets. I don't like borscht. Other people, we had somebody come to our house last week and say, can you give me all the borscht you have? We love borscht. And I don't. And I may enjoy kugel with schmaltz. And other people say, schmaltz? Are you crazy? Cholesterol and chicken fat and blah, 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 blah. That's yours and that's mine. I can't want what you want. You can't want what I want. Same thing with pleasure. You can enjoy classical music and I can say, oh, it's so boring, it puts me to sleep. So everybody has different ways of it's all personal. Will and pleasure are very personal, deep within the person type of feelings. So when we say that the mitzvahs, commandments come from God's will, even those that we do understand make logical sense to us, but from God's standpoint, our logic is very shallow. His logic is much deeper and in fact infinite. And we don't have any real connection to that. God does us a favor and gives us some of the meanings behind the mitzvah, so it makes us more appreciate it better on our level. But truth is, every single thing that God wants comes from the desire of the infinite, so the reasons and the logic behind it are also infinite. Even those that do have reasons, that's not the real reason. The real reasons are a lot more and actually removed from us. And that's the attitude that Jewish people need to have towards the Torah and its commandments. There are certain commandments that we understand, and there are certain commandments that we actually enjoy. Some people may enjoy Shabbos, some people may appreciate kosher, some people may enjoy putting on tefillin every day, and some people may not enjoy Shabbos or kosher or tefillin every day, but they may enjoy having the mezuzah, makes them feel good, and other things. That's good. But when following the Torah, every single commandment comes from God's will. And since it stems from God's will, then they're all good. The fact that we don't understand it only means, or we don't appreciate it, only means that we're human and God is God. And we do it because God wants us to do that. That's the message of Hanukkah so far. Page 49. I'm sorry to all my friends in Peachtree City, but I took all the copies of the text with me, but the people over here will keep me honest. We won't be able to say anything I want to say. I can't make it up. And if I do, you'll hear an outcry. Page 48 in the English. To win this war, to win this battle, the one that we've just talked about, by reintroducing divinity into the observance of Judaism, to win this war, a rational service of God would not be enough. Serving God just because we understand it and it makes sense to us, that would not be enough to win the Greeks. That would be not enough to really truly get the message of Hanukkah. Being rational doesn't fit into Hanukkah. Footnote number 80. Footnote number 80. As explained in the previous chapters 4 and 5, the Greeks waged war against the very foundation of Torah and mitzvot, arguing that Torah and mitzvot were purely rational exercises and did not contain a supra-rational divine element. That was their argument. Such a severe challenge calls for a response of similar magnitude, or a response that beckons from the very depths of one being, from the essence of one soul. One cannot continue his normal day-to-day mode of divine service when confronted by such a fundamental challenge, nor can one go just a little beyond the norm. What is required to vanquish the Greeks is a degree of divine service that is nothing short of self-sacrifice, in other words, standing firmly, essentially, against the enemy. Standing against the enemy without saying to the enemy, let's engage in logical dialogue, because they came to Judaism to introduce logic. So by responding logically or rationally, you are behaving like them. And the message we need to send to ourselves as well as to the enemy is that we're Jews that defies logic. True, we have certain commandments that are logical and that we appreciate as well, and we enjoy doing them, but that's not why we do them. We're doing the Torah and the mitzvot, and the connection that we have to the Torah and to the mitzvot is beyond rationality and logic. Back to the script. Even a supra-rational service that is tied to rationality, or a service that stems from the level of makif of chaya, the close makif. We'll talk about this in a second, explain what this parenthesis means. But in the meantime, anything that's connected to one's own logic and rationality would not suffice. For the Greeks also contaminated all the oils in the sanctuary, meaning even the holy matters that transcend rationality yet are tied to it were contaminated. As we said before, the oil represents wisdom because it doesn't mix with any other liquids. It's chokhmah, the wisdom. Wisdom, of course, is intellectual. They even contaminated the oil, which represents intellect. But it's the intellect that is not definable. It's wisdom. It's beyond understanding. You got to bring it down and then understand it. But as it is in the wisdom level, it's beyond understanding. So they go after the oil, which represents chokhmah, because they want to defile even that which is anything that's not quite understandable or rational. This makif, level of makif of chaya, the Midrash, the sages in the Midrash explain that the soul throughout the Tanakh, throughout the Bible, is referred to with 5 different names. There's the word nefesh. Nefesh means a soul. There is the word called ruach, that's the spirit, that's also the soul. There's the neshama, that appears in Tehillim a lot. Neshama means the soul. And then so those 3 levels, those 3 names represent 3 different levels of the soul. The nefesh level is the basic elementary level of life, of existence. Everything has a nefesh. An animal has a nefesh. A tree has a nefesh. A nefesh means the fact that we can move, that we can see, that we can talk, that we can function, that we can exist. The physical part of our existence, which is governed by the nefesh level of the soul. Then there's the ruach. Ruach means, of course, spirit. Let's get some spirit. Spirit is our emotional and our characteristics, that which gives us the spirit. those are who are very kind, those who are angry, those who are happy. It's the characteristics and the emotions within the person. The neshama level is the intellectual level within the person. The intellect, that's a seichel, that's the intellect. That animals don't have the neshama. They have a nefesh, they may even have a ruach, but they don't have a neshama. There is no intellect in an animal, only for it to survive, for basic instincts, but nothing more than that. They can't innovate, they can't create. A bird is never going to build a nice house because a nest is too shabby and a wind may blow it out of the tree. And the ant is never going to expand, or as they say today, evolve into building a better, stronger, more fortified building. And the lion is never going to go to barbecue meat because it tears into the flesh of another animal. It's so cruel and mean. It's never going to grow past where it is. So it has enough intellect to lay in stealth and to catch that deer to survive, but not more than that. Neshama is given to a human being for the purpose of innovating, of creating. We can write, we can build, we can play musical instruments, we can inspire others, we can speak, we can communicate. These are neshama elements that are not shared with the animals, and this is governed by the neshama level of the soul. Now, there are two other names of a soul representing two other levels. Chaya, which is used once in the Bible for the soul, and then Yechida. Chaya means, of course, the living, the life. Yechida means the one and only, the only one. Yechida. That is the essence of the soul. That represents pleasure, and Chaya represents will. Those two, will and pleasure, are not within us. As I said before, your finger can't say, "Oh, I didn't like this vacation. I didn't enjoy this piece of meat." Well, that doesn't, it's an encompassing level. It surrounds every element of the person. If there's one part of the person that's in pain, then your pleasure is not a pleasure. It has to encompass everything. That is the chaya, the will, and the yechida, the pleasure. Those are the 5 levels of soul. The 2 of them are surrounding levels. Now, the will is called makif hakarov, the surrounding level that's closer to the person, and the pleasure is called makif harachok, the distant surrounding level. Why is pleasure distant? Because pleasure, by definition, is elusive. And when you get it, you can only enjoy it for a short period of time, relatively. If you had pleasure all the time, it wouldn't be pleasure anymore. It'd be routine. If you enjoyed something, then it wouldn't be pleasure. So if people from Russia were looking at America, I can't wait to get to America, they would think that the people in America are living with this great pleasure. But this is not pleasure for us. It's routine. Somebody once came to visit us from somewhere that didn't have many trees or grass. And all they had was gray buildings where they lived in an urban setting. They came to visit us in Sandy Springs. Oh, all the trees and the grass. And he couldn't hold himself back. I was driving with him and he says to me, "You guys live on vacation." He only knew of trees and grass when there was a vacation. I said, "Well, there's only one big difference between you and me. I actually work on vacation." For me, this wasn't pleasure. For me, this was getting up in the morning and then dealing with my business, So I had to get away from there in order to enjoy it. Pleasure can't stay forever. So it's elusive. You got to make plans to get it, and then when you finally get it, you don't stay that long. All good things must come to an end, as they say. That's pleasure. So makif harachok, it's a distant surrounding level because it doesn't stick around too much. Whereas will, we always have will. Will follows us everywhere we go. In fact, it makes us go everywhere we go. We have a will. And where there's a will, there's a way. And where there's a will, you can move mountains. So it is a surrounding level because it encompasses all of us, but it's a level that pushes and stays with us at all times. So, oh, sure.
Should the pleasure that your friend experienced shouldn't there be something in you that does make you acknowledge that pleasure all the time? We feel very privileged to live in Sandy Springs with trees, not surrounded by grey buildings. So isn't there something that should be in our souls to acknowledge that pleasure, that it is beautiful all the time?
Yeah, it's beautiful. You just don't see it. You don't get pleasure out of it. the pleasure he got was because he doesn't see it every day. To me, it became just a routine. When I first moved there, my eyes were wide open.
Right.
When I first moved to Peachtree City, well, it's always going to be pleasure in Peachtree City, guys. But we actually moved away from the vacation of Sandy Springs. We moved to the vacation of Peachtree City. And people who come from Sandy Springs come and they go, whoa, what do you have over here? Massive lawns and beautiful homes and nice places and beautiful people, for crying out loud. Best looking people in the world are there. What? They're darn right, aren't they?
A bunch of golf courses too, right?
Golf courses and golf carts, even if you don't play golf. Pleasure galore.
Every day.
Every single day. So should we acknowledge the fact that people live on the beach? Do you think that's pleasure for them every single day? Because they have to pay bills when they're sitting there. And they have to deal with the riffraff. They have to deal with their neighbors, they have to deal with their children, they have to deal with their parents, and they have to deal with storms and all kinds of things, which when you go to the beach for 5 days, you come home, you have a tan, you feel relaxed, you feel rested, you feel like you've been, finally, you've been able to, these people have to go away from there in order to appreciate this pleasure. They have to come to Sandy Springs. So you can acknowledge that it's beautiful, but to you, it doesn't look any more beautiful. So if you decorated your house in a very beautiful way, but you're seeing it every single day for 10 years, and then your friend comes over and, wow, look at that painting. You forgot that it was even beautiful. You didn't even think of it. You just walk past it every day. Can you call that taking it for granted? Yeah, but that's how we are. We can't sit around enjoying things like this because it wouldn't be enjoyment anymore. It's just not enjoyment. We enjoy when other people enjoy it. That's our pleasure. So that's what he means by makif hakarov in the parenthesis, the close makif. The makif, the surrounding level that's close, it refers to willpower. So this is a supra-rational service that stems from a deeper level, a surrounding level within the person, not quite the defined personal levels within the person. Let's continue here. All right, you know what? 82. Talk a little bit more about this makif concept. Footnote 82 on page 49. There are two types of makifim. There are two types of surrounding levels, or transcendent levels. One that is close and one that is distant. The close makif, or surrounding level, can be compared to clothing which surrounds a person closely and is tailored to his specific size. The distant makif can be compared to a house, which encompasses a person from a distance and is not measured to the occupant's exact size. You gotta have room to walk around in your house. You hope you don't have room to walk around in your clothing, because it's gotta stick to you. So it surrounds you. It's not you, but it's in you. I must have said something very funny. In terms of divine service, the close makif denotes a type of service that is beyond, yet still relates to one's normal manner of service. That's that will that goes with us everywhere we go. Like, for example, when one comes to the logical conclusion that he is to serve God in a manner that supersedes logic. So now you've understood that you've got to not understand. That's a logical, transcendent level. And it will be recognizable in his supra-rational service that it is ultimately rationally derived, because I understand now that I have to be non-understandable. The distant makif, conversely, denotes a type of service that is completely beyond one's normal manner of service. Whereas one's divine service is normally based upon his thoughts or feeling, or even a supra-rational godly desire that stems from a logical thought process. So we sometimes we serve God, or we do whatever we do because we understand it, we appreciate it, we like it, and we enjoy it. This type of divine service is nothing short of an expression of the very essence of a person's soul. And as the discourse will explain, when one's true essence is revealed, the essence that is essentially bound with God, singular essence, one serves God with such strength and self-sacrifice that he completely vanquishes the Greeks. You can compare it to people who lived in the most difficult of times in our history. And there were people who were very devout, and there was no chance of them ever going to do anything that would be against God's Torah. Then there were people who grew up, who chose not to be as devout and not to be as religious or observant, whatever word you want to use, and they sort of didn't put on tefillin every day. And they didn't observe kosher properly, and they didn't put on the tzitzis, and they didn't have a mezuzah, and they didn't keep kosher necessarily. They weren't observant, and they came to shul once a year, or maybe no times a year. But they were Jewish, were proud Jews. They didn't do anything, but they're Jews. And then some trouble came to town, came to the shtetl. And the guy would stand over them with a guillotine or with a sword or with a knife or with a gun and say, either you accept what's his name as your God, or we're going to cut you. And he'd say, you know what, one thing I'm not going to do, I will not bowing down to the idols. I'm not going there. I may not be a proper observant Jew, a fully observant Jew, but I'm not. Daniel Pearl, perfect example. A man who was intermarried. His wife isn't Jewish. And he didn't keep any kind of thing. But when they asked him, they had a knife next to his throat. And they said, tell us who you are. He said, I was born a Jew and I will die a Jew. Last words. Where does that come from? Why do you have to say that? Say, I decided to become a Muslim. Would have saved his life. You could have said, I have become a Muslim. And from now on, I'm going to pray 5 times a day, bow down, and kill people. I'm going to be a proper Muslim. It would have saved his life. But somehow, this Yiddishkeit, this pintele Yid, this deepest part of the essence of a Jew, would not let him declare faith to anything else other than his neshama, than his essence. And so his dying words were, I was born a Jew, I will die a Jew. And you know what? That soul of that man who didn't do that much of Judaism in his life goes straight up to the highest places. He's together with the victims of the Holocaust and anybody who was in Tzahal and who was killed on the battlefield or blown up on a bus somewhere in Jerusalem or anywhere else around the world. People who are murdered and targeted.
So we want to take a group picture, maybe a few more minutes.
A couple minutes, yeah. People who were murdered, targeted because they were Jewish. These are people whose souls, we're told by our sages, climb to the highest possible places. That's the essence of a Jew. And that's unusual. You don't expect that. You don't expect a person like that to behave that way, which is why it makes such a powerful impact on us. We all know this because, wow, that's amazing. And Jews have been doing this all throughout history. That's what Hanukkah is, the essence of a Jew. Let's just one more paragraph here. Winning the war required the service of self-sacrifice, which is to stand firmly against all obstacles. To summon an inherent strength that completely transcends intellect. If you'd asked Daniel Pearl a year before, what would you do if you had a knife to your head, to your neck, and they said, what are you? Would you say, I am born? He might not have said, he might not even thought that way. He didn't live that way. But somehow it came from the essence of his soul, transcending intellect. This is similar to self-sacrifice for the sanctification of God's name, which is when people are murdered for that purpose, which does not stem from any intellectual rationale, but from the fact that it is absolutely cannot be any other way. This sense stems from the bond of the soul's essence, the level of the soul called yachida, the singular, and the nature of an essential bond that it absolutely cannot be any other way, God forbid. Then the level of yachida, well, on page 50, is not susceptible to blemish or impurity, God forbid. This is similar to the one jug of oil that was found with the seal of the high priest still intact, since the outsiders are incapable of reaching that. They can't penetrate the seal, the divine seal. It is therefore through the service of self-sacrifice, which stems from the Yechida, that the war can be won. And the same occurred in the war against the Greeks on the physical level. Through the self-sacrifice of Matisyahu and his sons, not that Matisyahu, this Matisyahu, the Matisyahu who took a small band of Jews who didn't know how to fight anything and took on the Greek, very seasoned, battled soldiers and won, who though weak and few, stood with self-sacrifice to battle those who were strong and many, and who thereby inspired the people of their generation to give their lives for the sanctification of God's name, to refrain from violating the religion in any way. It was through this self-sacrifice that they won the war. It tapped into the deepest levels, to the deepest annals of a Jew's soul, which is why Hanukkah is the essential holiday. It's actually one of the most, if not the most celebrated holiday, because all Jews realize it in the subconscious that this represents and celebrates that unique connection that every single Yid in this world has with God, that essential connection that can never be penetrated and broken or blemished.
This small cruse of oil that they found, can that be like a metaphor or compared to the Pintele Yid?
That is
It
exactly
is
that.
it.
Yes.
Okay.
Want to thank
Thank you
everyone
very
that
much.
came to the Zoom.
I'll see you guys later.